Welcome everybody. My name is Brandon Peterson. I'm an account manager with ApplicantStack by SwipeClock, and we welcome you to today's Ask Me Anything. I'm joined by Lauren with our marketing team and Carol, who's another account manager who's presented here before. And Ellen is excused today. She's out, and we wish her well. So we miss her, but we hope she's having a great time. We're going to go ahead and wait a couple minutes to let a few more people get on if they want to. And we're expecting a good turnout today, so we'll start in about two after the hour. Okay, folks, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Brandon. I'll be your presenter today. I'm an account manager with ApplicantStack by SwipeClock. Today, we wanted to talk a little bit about a very specific topic, which is how to use pay fields to improve your recruiting process. We're going to talk about what that means and how to use that, particularly with Indeed. All right, so we want to really talk about using pay transparency to increase our applicants. We know how important applicants are to your business and how critical it is to find the right people. So anything we can do to improve our recruiting process can be very helpful. We know that pay is the first criteria that candidates look for. This has been studied, and over, pay is the first thing they look at. Now, in the end, it may not be the primary thing. If they have two jobs that are otherwise equal, sometimes people pick a job that pays a little bit less because perhaps it has more opportunity or for many other reasons. But pay by far more than anything else is the most important thing. Now, Indeed, since last year, they've really been prioritizing jobs that list the pay now more than ever. Now, this is a business decision on their side, but it's also part of a social decision where there are pay disparities that exist, and Indeed wants to play a part in equalizing that. And they feel that pay transparency is a piece in that puzzle. So displaying the pay can help you target, one, the ideal audience, and this is, and then we also want to point out that when you display your pay, you can get up to 2 times the amount of candidates than you would if you didn't display your pay. Now, with Indeed specifically, if you don't put your pay in the listing or in a field that pushes over to Indeed, then they're going to guess for you. They're going to run an estimate and they're going to display that estimate on your job. So you're somewhat powerless, and that's on purpose. Indeed really wants us to put our pay in those fields so that candidates know exactly what they're getting. So let's talk about now how we can use custom fields in ApplicantStack to enforce this as a priority. So if you're the administrator for your account and you want all your recruiters to put in the pay when a job is posted, I'm going to walk you through how to do that. Now, making it required is optional, and I'll show you how that's done as well. But it's basically a 3-step process. First, we create a custom field in ApplicantStack, and then we map that field to Indeed. And then third, we need to make sure our team knows how to use that field and that it's used consistently across the board. So to first create the custom job field, we would navigate to Setup, Configure, and then Job Fields. And that's going to bring us to this page where you can see this graphic. So when we're creating this job field, we're going to be asked some of the characteristics of what we want this job field to take. So we're first going to give it a name. It's up to you what you name it. That doesn't really matter as long as it's understood by everybody in your organization what that means. So you could use salary or wage or pay or whatever. Now, the description is optional, but it can be helpful, especially for this field, to explain how you need to format the text, because as I'll talk about in a second, that can be critical as well. So the type of field, it's going to be a text field. Now that may seem counterintuitive, right? You might think, oh, this should be a number field. But typically we're putting in a pay range. And so you're having formatting in there that needs to be identified as a text. Just understand that when it gets to the other side, when it gets pushed to Indeed, Indeed will recognize that if we do things correctly. So then we assign the section of where we want this field to show. We're going to put that in the job information section. And then required, this is where we determine whether when anyone is requisitioning a new job, whether this field is going to be required. Do they have to put in something in this field before they save and open the job? And I'm an advocate for saying yes, we want this to be required so that we have consistency across our organization. And then private, that's a decision again for you. This would mean that only recruiters or administrators can see the pay, but hiring managers cannot. So if you have hiring managers using ApplicantStack within your organization, then you don't want the pay to be visible to them, you can make it private. Next, we decide how we want to display the job or display the pay. So do we want this to show on the job board? Do we want it to show on the jobs table when we go to the jobs tab inside ApplicantStack? Do we want it to list the pay with all the other information that's on that grid? And then lastly, do we want it to show on the candidates table? When we go to the candidates tab, do we want the pay to show on that grid? So those are options that you can set yourself. All right, so once that job field has been created, then we can now map it to Indeed. With our Indeed integration, we allow that field to point directly to the piece of the feed that we push over to Indeed so that Indeed knows that this is the pay we're specifying. So we do that by navigating to Setup, and then on the blue menu on the left, we're going to click Job Boards, and then we will scan the page to find where it says Indeed Postings, and then over on the right, you'll see Edit Settings for the Indeed postings. So we'll do that, and then you'll see this page here that's displayed in this slide. So we can make the field active, and we want the source to be Indeed. This is where we would also establish whether we want to use Indeed Apply or not. That's a whole nother topic, but in case you're wondering why that's there, this is where you would find that. And then, so where it says Indeed Salary, you can use this drop down to select which field is going to be the salary field. So if you haven't created the field yet, obviously you're not going to see one here. But once you create it as a custom job field, then it'll show as an option. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm mapping the Indeed salary to my wage field that I created earlier. Okay, now training the team to make sure that this gets used. Again, if you're going to make it required, they're not going to be able to get very far unless they put in a wage. But we want to make sure that the wage is in the proper format. Indeed has issued some rules about how their algorithm looks for wages. And notice my bullet point 3.2. We need to format it so that there's spaces in between the slash and the dashes. So you see the example, $15 $15 to $17 per hour, and there's spaces between the dashes and the slashes. You don't want to do 15-17 per hour with no spaces. or else the Indeed algorithm may not pick that up and recognize it. Okay. So that's important to train your team how to format that correctly. Now you don't have to use a wage, or excuse me, you don't have to use a range. That is optional, but if you're going to use a range, you need to make sure you format it in that manner. So now let me exit the slides and I'll show you on Indeed how this displays. So if I open up an example of Indeed, you'll see this job here for a caregiver in Salt Lake. It shows that it's $15 to $16.50 an hour. And this is highlighted in green because I, as a candidate, as a fake candidate, have put in my pay preferences. And so Indeed is seeing that the wage for this job is matching my preferences, and so it's showing it up at the top. Now you'll see this second job, it shows an estimated 24.9K to 31.6K. That's because this posting did not include job or wage information, and so Indeed is going to guess what that's going to be, and it's going to give the job that had the wage specified priority in the search results. So I hope this is helpful for you. I really encourage you to use this feature of ApplicantStack as you use the Indeed integration and as you sponsor on Indeed. This can be really helpful and can help you, again, as I said earlier, almost double your applicants when we use the proper wage data. So thank you. We'll now open up the presentation for questions.
Thank you, Brandon, and I'll be helping with those questions today. We did want to mention that we have an upcoming recruit webinar that will take place on August 22nd, and there is a link in the chat if you would like to register for that. Okay, and our first question, when will the new 2023 I-9 be ready for import into our forms for our workflow?
Yeah, I actually don't know the answer to that question. Do you want to help me out, Carol?
Yeah, we are working on that. I believe the current version is valid, I want to say until October 31st, but that should be coming. Our team is aware of that and they are working on it. So hang tight, it should be soon. Okay, and we have another question, Brandon. Can we merge duplicate applications?
All right, unfortunately, that is not a feature we support. If you're having a lot of duplicates, then there is a feature we can turn on to require candidates to create a login first. So they have to log in, and then ApplicantStack saves their application and they can apply to multiple jobs without repeating that process. But once they've applied twice, unfortunately, we don't have an ability to merge them. Do you have any other tips on that, Carol?
Yeah, the only other idea would be if the candidate has applied more than once, you'll get a red alert next to their name, which will let you know they've applied to other jobs, and you could put a note, a global note in their record, just letting everyone know this candidate's applied before, or whatever pertinent information needs to be recorded. That might be another way to handle that.
Okay, great.
Next question, how do we print archive forms from the onboarding side once the applicant has been deactivated?
Okay, I can show you how to do that. Okay, can everyone still see my screen?
Yep, we can.
Okay. So I'll switch to onboarding. Going to my hires tab, and I'll open up a candidate who has completed some of the paperwork. So you'll see under the completed form section, I can either view each individual form separately by clicking on the View PDF blue button, or here in the header, you'll see it says View All Forms. So if I click on View All Forms, it's going to stitch those PDFs together into one PDF, and then I can open that and print it from there. You'll see here we got W4. I've got actually 2 W4s in here. So, okay, next question.
Okay, next question. Can we integrate our Outlook calendars? So this would be back on the recruit side.
Okay, yes, you can. Let me show you how to do that. And that might be something we want to cover in another Ask Me Anything, or maybe even a longer demo. But there is a feature to integrate Office 365 calendars into ApplicantStack or your Google Calendar in ApplicantStack. So I'll go to my Recruit home screen. I'm going to go to Setup, and then down here on the left, we'll see Integrations. And so you'll see here we've got the Google Calendar integration and the Office 365 integration. If I edit the settings, we'll see whether it's active or not, and then there's an Office 365 tenant ID, which you would have to get from your IT team. Once that's done, we can work with your IT team to make this happen. So the way this works is if you are using ApplicantStack to schedule events, whether it be phone screenings, interview appointments, etc., then you can actually set it up so that candidates are able to self-schedule their own interviews by having visibility to your availability in your calendar. They're not going to see what you're doing throughout those hours, but they just see that you're busy, or the available times are presented to them rather for them to pick if to come in for an interview. And beyond seeing the visibility with an ApplicantStack, we can also set a baseline range of time. So for example, if you don't ever want to do an interview before 10 a.m., you just set that range for 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. or 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. if that's your range. And then it's only going to display available times between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Depending on that example. So that can be really helpful. And we have other ways of doing self-scheduling. We can use third parties like Calendly or Microsoft Bookings that can, we can also send links to candidates that way if you want to have self-scheduling as a feature of your recruiting workflow.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Next question, can we email managers when we are on the candidate page?
Email managers from the candidate page.
I think if you go into email a candidate, there should be a BCC field.
Yeah. Good point, Carol. So yeah, if you're emailing a candidate, you can copy another manager or anybody else to receive that same message if that supports your question. I'm not sure if that addresses what the use case that you're hoping to use this for, but you can copy them on messages to the candidates. All right, next question.
Is there a way to add sent received emails to the history/notes section in the candidate files if the original email did not come directly from ApplicantStack? So it sounds like we have an email that was not originated, so it didn't automatically record, and then we're just looking for a way to record that in the system.
Okay, so in that situation, I would just, here I would go into the candidate record, and then we can add an attachment. So if I had an email exchange in my Outlook with the candidate and I wanted to attach that to the candidate's file, I could print that out as a PDF, save it, and then add attachment and select that file and upload it into the candidate's record.
Yeah, and you may also want to think about maybe adding a note with that information, so that will be lumped with the rest of their history. That might be another way to approach that.
Okay. Next question.
How can we add all jobs into separate folders? For example, they want to be able to identify all of one job by its category, all director of nursings in a particular location, rather than having to go to each job posting. And I'm trying to think this through. We don't really have a way to separate jobs into folders per se, but you could create a job field.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. And then you could use your filters up at the top of the job page, the job table, is what I'm thinking. Brandon, if you want to maybe walk through that field.
So I think what Carol's saying is you can set an extra job field. We just showed you how to do a job field for pay. But we can also set a job field for a job type or category or for location. And so here I've got job fields for location, department, and job category. And so in this situation, I can sort by these. I can click on the header and have it sort alphabetically. But I can also click my gray header up here and use these filters to take out or to narrow down my search. So if I only wanted to look at the finance department, then I can use this department filter to show all my finance jobs. Or alternatively, if I wanted to sort by location, I could use the location dropdown and sort by that location. These are excellent questions today. Thank you.
For sure, for sure. Okay, this is a follow-up to the question about deactivated candidates and onboard. What if they have already archived the forms and deactivated the applicant? As far as the applicant being deactivated, you would just have to find them. You may have to filter based on inactive hires to find them. And then the form should still be attached to their record. Or maybe perhaps, Brandon, we're looking at maybe in the library. I'm not 100% sure.
I'm not sure I understand the gist of the question. If they're deactivated, then what? What are we wondering? How do we view them?
I believe, how do we get the forms from that record?
Okay, so yeah, you would use the filters similar to how I just showed you using the filters for jobs. We can click on the header here, and I think I need to add, let's see, active hires. So here I can go to all hire stages and select all, or I can even select a inactive stage, like terminated in this example is an inactive stage, and that's going to show all candidates who are in that stage. Once I do that, I can open up the record just as if they were active and view all their files. So when they're inactivated, the main definition of that means that the candidate can't log into the hiring portal to view or fill out any paperwork. But you can still, even if they're inactive, you can still access all of their records.
Okay, next question. Can we create a separate pipeline strictly for prospects and sourcing? And what I'm thinking that might refer to would be creating a separate job, or perhaps the general job and the job board setting. And then having candidates come into the system, and then from there you filter them out appropriately. That's what I'm thinking that question means.
Yeah, I like that direction. So let me switch it back over to recruit, and I'll demonstrate what Carol is explaining. So I go into setup, and I can go to job boards, and then under the public job board here, I'll edit the settings. And here under general job, this is where I can assign one job to be the general job. It's the default job that applicants dump into if they're not applying for any other specific job. So this can be used for that. It's not, if you wanted to set up a separate workflow for candidates that entered in the general job, you could. But once they've applied, I would think you'd want to assign them to another job that's more specific. I hope that, if you could give us feedback there, I hope that answers your question. We could dive a little bit deeper if you'd like.
Okay.
I mentioned, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Brandon. Are we ready for the next question?
Yeah, we are.
Okay. Can we set reminders past 7 days? So, for example, for interview feedback forms and so forth. Those are system settings. So maybe, Brandon, if you want to go into create a task with interview feedback and set a reminder, we can take a look at what those options are.
You wanted me to create a task?
Yeah, just pick a random candidate maybe, and then create task. And then if you, for example, attach at the bottom, if you attach a questionnaire, maybe interview feedback, and then that send email reminder. I just want to see what that, when you drill down every 7 days. So that looks like it maxes out. That will remind them every 7 days to go ahead and submit that information. I'm not sure what the use case was for that when that was determined, but right now it looks like 1 to 7 days we're limited to.
Yeah, so just want to specify that this is a cadence. So every 1 day means it's sending a reminder every single day until that task is completed. Every 7 days means it's going to send a cadence every 7 days until it's completed. So to your question, can we get reminders after 7 days? Yes, all of these options would send a reminder after 7 days if the task hasn't been completed. It just depends on how often we want those reminders to go out. That's what this is asking. Okay, next question.
Okay, how do you email a manager in ApplicantStack without emailing the candidate? So this is a follow-up to the prior question. We may need a use case for that, just to help with that further, but you could, for example, we just saw create a task. You could create a task and assign it to that user. So Brandon, if you want to go back into that task as an example, you could say to your internal user under created by template, assign to, you would assign it to those users, and you could perhaps put some notes in there to say, please review this candidate. They would have to be a user in the system for that to work. But that is one thought that I have, but if you have some further details on what exactly you're trying to accomplish, we can help with that. Typically, the system is geared more towards emailing your candidates than it would be your internal users. But there are some things you can do to communicate with them.
Yeah, it might also be an option to create a note. Do notes have notifications? I believe they do.
Okay, and is there any other question about the archive forms if you can't print them? You may want to try saving them to your desktop as a PDF. We may need to get that over to our tech support team to determine if you can see it, but you can't print it. Maybe you could try saving it to your desktop. You can export that candidate. That should send out their forms in a PDF version. If that doesn't work, we may need to get our support team involved and see what's going on with that, why you can't print that information.
Yeah, to print a blank form, it's only a super user function, Carol.
Okay, so maybe there's a confusion over is it a blank form or is it a completed form?
Right.
Okay, can we batch process candidates? Meaning if we have old applicants that are still in new, can we choose more than one and move them to do not pursue as an example?
Yes, you can. That's a great question. So you just have to go to the candidates tab and select the checkbox correlating to the candidates that you want to adjust. So if here I am at the candidates tab and say I want to select these 3 candidates, I can, let's see here. Well, I guess I'm thinking about setting jobs in bulk, but I'm not sure we can set their stage. Oh, sorry, yes we can. Here we go. So we check these boxes and then we can click on the name of one of the stages. So I'm hovering over new for Jeff Placido and I click on that. Remember, all 3 of these are selected. So now I'll get a pop-up asking me which stage I want to move them to, and I can move them to withdrawn or whatever, and then I just submit it. I'll be asked to confirm, and once I do, those candidates will be moved from the stage that they were in.
Okay, we do have a question about getting an application back that was accidentally deleted. Possibly, that would need to go to our technical support team in order to determine that. So if you could submit a ticket, let them know which candidate, what application was accidentally deleted. I will need to defer to our tech support team on that.
Yeah, and I would add, we recommend that you really don't delete hardly anything. That's something you might want to train your team not to delete, but use the archive, use the inactive functions, because it is difficult to retrieve deleted information. If you have a candidate that's and their application has been deleted mistakenly, I found the quickest way to fix that is sadly just to have them reapply. Send them the link directly and just have them reapply, and that's probably going to be your quickest way to get that candidate moving along.
Okay, we have some thank yous coming through. So fantastic. We've got some questions being answered. May refer back to a previous question. We would like to view a particular disposition, for example, say for another opportunity by location and or job title, not by job posting or ID. So I think we may be back to the filters on your candidates.
Can we filter by disposition? I know we can run a report for that.
Or we can use the search functionality, might be another option.
I don't think I don't think I'm using disposition in this demo account, but okay, so yeah, if we go to search, we can see disposition here.
Okay, and we have confirmation. Yep, they can filter by disposition. This might be another option. You could run a search and any candidate in that disposition, and then you could also look at location, job title, should be searchable. Don't quite, maybe if it was a job, we'd have a location identified. But you can search your jobs as well, your candidates or your jobs, you can search for that information using the search functionality. Or to Brandon's point, you could run a report as well. You would just drag those fields into the report, and then you could run that information from there as well.
Okay, great. Getting a lot of thank yous. This is wonderful. We're so glad you guys joined us. Hopefully this has been helpful.
Okay.
Good. Any more questions that we missed?
I don't believe so. Okay, we have more thank yous coming through. Maybe we'll give everyone just a couple of seconds. If you have any remaining questions, we're happy to help. There will be, Brandon, do you want to speak to the survey that will be coming up?
Yeah, so we want to encourage you, please, we really want to continue to make these helpful and informative. So we want to ask you to fill out a survey that's going to be sent out after this call. It should take less than 30 seconds. So if we know you're busy and we know that your email box can get jammed up, but if you would please take a few seconds to fill that out and let us know how we're doing on these, and if there's anything else you'd like us to cover, then that can be very helpful to us and in turn, hopefully helpful to you. The second thing I wanted to mention is we do have a recruiting webinar coming up on August 22nd, and we want to invite you all to join that, particularly if you have new employees in your office that aren't as familiar with ApplicantStack, they're just learning ApplicantStack. It can be very helpful to have them attend those webinars, have them bring their questions. We'll have a Q&A at the end as well. And we look forward to having you on that call as well. But we again want to thank you for your attendance. Thank you to Carol for helping with the questions. Thank you to Lauren for putting this all together. And we'll see you next time. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.